Hello, I'm Dr. Anne Gaker-Parker, and I am a professor of chemistry at the University of West Georgia. I am here to talk to you today about the materials that we created for our nursing chemistry course. The University of West Georgia is located about an hour away from Atlanta, and there I teach the year-long chemistry sequence for pre-nursing majors that we call Chem 1151, 1152. 1151 is a survey of general chemistry, and 1152 is the survey of organic and biochemistry. As a state institution, we are part of the University System of Georgia that has a grant program that allowed us to request funds to support this kind of work. And that's what we did. We wrote 4 grants for a total of $35,000 that helped us develop what I'm about to share with you. So who was on the team? It was a team of 6 people. 4 of us are from the chemistry department, Dr. Khan, Dr. Geisler, and Dr. Stewart, and of course myself here. We also worked with Miss C.J. Ivory, a professor in the library at the university. And also we partnered with Mr. Oliver Dua, who is a professor in the School of Nursing. Oliver was actually a student of mine in my chemistry secret years ago, which really helped for the discussions as part of this work. So what did we do? We looked at what was available through OpenStax and LibreText. And so for Chem 1151, we adapted some work from OpenStax to make it relevant and aligned with the way I teach the course. For 1152, it was a little bit less involved because I was able to find a GOB textbook in LibreText that was already pretty much aligned with the work that I wanted my students to do and learn from. So those 2 resources are available here through those websites. What else did we do? We added solved problems, we added case studies, and I'm going to share all of that with you. We also did renewable assessments, and I did not know what those were, and maybe that's the case for some of you. So what are renewable assessments? Those are assignments that we give the students, asking them to create problems and answers so that they can be shared with the rest of the class. A very powerful tool I have found. So some examples of the solved problems that we created, as you can see here in those problems, we looked at WebMD, we look at the nursing field, and we try to make those problems as relevant as possible for our pre-nursing majors. Not only because we want to keep them interested, but also because we want them to start learning the right vocabulary that they're going to be encountering in nursing school, like an autoclave, let's say. So this was embedded in our chapters. Mr. Oliver Dua was in charge of creating case studies, again rooted in the nursing field. So when you look at those examples here, when we discuss electrolytes, it is in the context of bodily fluids. When we discuss aspirin, it's in the context of toxicology and so forth. So those are very powerful tools to keep our students engaged while learning. The last thing I want to share with you here are those renewable assessments, and it is Mrs. C.J. Ivory from the library who educated me on that. As I said earlier, I did not know about this practice. And so at first, when I asked my students to create those problems, I thought that the way I had modeled in class would be sufficient for them to create similar kind of problems, but that was not the case. The solved problems that they gave me at first were way too simple, way too basic, and I learned the hard way that you really have to guide them and give them a set of instructions that is very, very detailed for them to be able to provide those examples at the level that you expect. And I'm going to show you some here. Look at this example here, where it is a very basic conversion between one temperature scale to the next. So very, very basic in terms of Bloom's taxonomy here. What I wanted the students to do is to provide me with more complex problems, multi-step problems, as you can see here. On the other hand, what I was not looking for was for them to learn how to use fancy softwares to draw molecules, for example. I am not sure that those students would ever use such software later on, so I really wanted them to focus on learning from that project without being frustrated with the technology. So what did they think? Is this positive? Well, I believe it's positive because not only it's renewable. So what does that mean? That means that I can reuse this body of work for all of my upcoming classes in the upcoming years. And of course, it builds on itself. So then it helps provide so many examples for my future students. And then I received this message here. That was a surprise to me from a student who told me that she was so happy with this kind of work that she's thinking about keeping doing it for her while she studies, even if it's not a requirement of the class. So that was very encouraging. I thought that's why I wanted to share that with you. Finally, what does it take to lead such a team that is so interdisciplinary? Well, it takes one central person who is accountable. And because I'm the lead instructor for chemistry for nursing, I was a PI on all of those projects. And so I was that central person. And what it means is that I had to learn to understand everybody on the team. As we said, even in the chemistry department, we all teach different courses. We all come from different backgrounds. So I really had to make sure that we understood what was needed for my students. What are the pros and cons? It is time consuming. There's no doubt about that. But it is a long-term investment. The work that has been done is going to be there forever, virtually. I think that we all enjoy working with each other. I think that we learned a lot from each other. And those collaborations that were created are going to be there for the long run, and we're very fruitful. There is one person I want to mention here in my acknowledgement. It's Miss Jubilee Ojibo. Jubilee was one of my students in this chemistry class a couple of years ago, and she's also a pre-nursing student here at West Georgia, and she was hired as part of the last 2 mini grants to help with some of the logistics. I also want to thank you, the University of West Georgia, and the University System of Georgia for funding our work here. Again, that is available on those 2 websites. If you have any further questions, this is our list of contact information. I hope you enjoyed this talk, and thank you again for listening.